screen. It gives you the option to do something, question a subject, pick something up, find a clue, so on and so forth. And if it turns blue, that means that's an area that you can explore, like it might lead down an alleyway or into a different room or a different part of the building. And that's basically it. The idea is to go into each scene, question everybody, look for clues, and then move on. So it's not great, this game, certainly for what I would describe as a newcomer to this genre. So, for example, if you're up on a Blade Runner and you want to play this game because of that, but you're not really used to playing point-and-click adventure games, probably going to struggle here because the game is not particularly intuitive in regards to a tutorial or anything, because there just isn't one. But a little bit of patience and you will pick it up fairly quickly. And you play a character called McCoy, a Blade Runner called McCoy, who is a stark contrast to the Harrison Ford character from the Blade Runner films. He's a little lighter, he's got more of a sense of humour, and you know, he's like the exact opposite, the mirror opposite of the Blade Runner character that Harrison Ford played, which actually suits this game quite nicely, because you don't want it to be too downbeat, and it is quite light in its approach, certainly in regards to that. And you're investigating, you're kind of new to the Blade Runner world, and you're investigating some Nexus 6 models. If you remember from Blade Runner films, those are the replicants that were displayed in the Blade Runner film, played by Rutger Hauer, so on and so forth. There's some Nexus 6s on the loose, and it's your job to track them down. So essentially you're going initially to a crime scene where some animals have been killed, like replicant animals have been killed, and you're investigating that, and then it kind of starts from there and snowballs along. So it's like it's an investigation game, really. Don't go into this game thinking it's going to be like action heavy, because there really is barely any action to speak of in this game. It's basically looking for clues at each scene, questioning people, and then moving on to the next scene, and unlocking different parts around Los Angeles for you to travel to. And that's essentially what you're looking for here. There is an option in this game for you to bring your gun out and use the gun if you are in a situation where you have to take down a replicant. It's quite few and far between, and if I'm honest, the shooting and the combat is beyond awful. It's really, really bad. I mean, there is a section early in the game where you can go to the police station and practice on like a target range, and it's just jaw-droppingly bad, the combat, really. The cursor that you move over to like fire at the bad guy if you're being attacked, it just doesn't work most of the time. So yeah, don't go into this thinking you're going to be happy and shooting replicants. This is essentially, like I say, a police investigation game for the most part. Happily, the game is fully voice acted, and I think it is of a really good standard as well. There are even some voices that you will recognise from the original property. So this game really will depend on an awful lot of things, really, for you guys. If you're quite a tolerant gamer and you don't mind like how a game generally looks, and you're quite nostalgic for either this game if you've played it in the past, or if it's a game that you're certainly interested in trying and can certainly tolerate the rough around the edges look, there's definitely a fun game here for you to play. I've been really enjoying my time with it. However, I've also found it really quite frustrating as well. I've almost had to relearn how to play a point-and-click adventure game. The menu system, essentially, when you're picking up clues and things like that, if you press like the middle button on your controller, it takes you into like a menu where you can look through the clues that you've picked up. And it is so poorly designed, that UI, in regards to navigating around the clues and the suspects. It's very frustrating. So while this game is certainly frustrating for the most part, it's certainly quite a lot of fun to play as well, and quite a chilled out experience. So if this is the sort of game you're looking for the price point, it's definitely worth checking out, guys. But please, you need to have your eyes open to what you're going into with this game. It isn't a looker, very old school, very old fashioned. If you can tolerate all that, there is quite a fun experience for you to enjoy. So I'm going to give this one 7 out of 10. I think I'm being a little bit generous with that score, but I think the price point and the fact that we are revisiting a classic game from the 90s, certainly I think puts it in good stead in my mind anyway. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel.
This video with the disclosure that my opinions are based on a review copy I kindly received from Night Dive around 5 days before Blade Runner was released. Some of the things I mention in this video might change when the game is released or after releasing an update. When it was announced that Night Dive were working on Blade Runner, I was very excited. This is high on my top 10 list of PC games. I played the game as a kid, which got me interested in the movie and the book. So there's a lot of nostalgia there for me, and I couldn't have picked a better company to restore it than Night Dive. When I was waiting for the release, I was thinking, how could Night Dive remake Blade Runner without the source code and the source 3D models? And the answer is they can't, and never intended to. This is not a remake. This is not even a remaster. The clue is in the title. This is the Enhanced Edition. When I first played the game, I didn't see much of a change. So I quickly closed the Enhanced Edition and built up the original game to compare the graphics. It was only then that I realised how pixelated the original game was, and that Night Dive had smoothed out all of those pixels. Being an Enhanced Edition and not a remaster means that the changes are fairly subtle. One of the first enhancements I noticed was the game now has a main menu. In the original game, it would just boot you right into the game without So you can now choose your player personality before the game actually loads up, which is actually a nice feature because I think a lot of people probably would have missed the personalities in the original game. I know when I first played the game, I didn't even know you could switch personalities for quite a while. And I definitely didn't appreciate how much the story changes depending on your personality. For anyone wondering, the best personality to usually go with is user choice, because that way you can individually choose which question you want to ask the suspects. The next and probably biggest change is the Kaya system has been completely overhauled. We now have a really nice HD decal for the Kaya system and HD text. And because the load and save function is in the main menu and player personality, the Kaya system has been streamlined to just one page, replacing the little button you normally press to take you to the second page with just a yellowish light. I'll quickly put some footage of the old Kaya system on screen now and show you had to flick through 2 different pages, which was essentially the old game's way of giving you a menu. The new one's much more streamlined and it's widescreen. I don't know why this was the only sort of overlay to get HD textures along with the menu. But the Void Comp machine I thought would have been pretty good to do in HD as well. I'm assuming because it was like a lot of it's like video footage and stuff, maybe they couldn't have upscaled because it's not a static thing of like the eyeball movement and stuff, and maybe they wouldn't have been able to upscale all the buttons and things like that. They wouldn't have been able to create their own version. Probably more like because it's an enhanced edition and not a full-on remaster or remake, there was limitations on how far we could actually push the upgrades. Another minor change is the text in the spinner menu. Whenever you're choosing the next location to visit, this little text box pops up on top of it, and it pops up a lot quicker in the Enhanced Edition. whenever you're choosing the next location to visit, this little text box pops up on top of it, and it pops up a lot quicker in the Enhanced Edition, and it's in the HD. Is how far we can actually push the upgrades. Another minor change is the text in the spinner menu. Whenever you're choosing the next location to visit, this little text box pops up on top of it, and it pops up a lot quicker in the Enhanced Edition, and it's in the HD, whereas in the older version it took a little bit longer for it to actually pop up, and just the text wasn't quite as high resolution. But this menu would have been another prime candidate to be made into HD, just like the Kaya one. I'm not sure the reason for this. Again, it could have just been a budget thing. Maybe they didn't have as much time to actually work on these things. Maybe it was just AI upscaled instead of just a full-on remake. And again, maybe they just didn't like to get into the remake territory, because where do you start really if you're just doing an Enhanced Edition? In terms of the up-resing of the original video files, I think it definitely works better in some places rather than others. Where I thought it looked really well was places like the arcade, where not so much the up-resing of the pixels, but the actual movement of the likes of the Moonbus when it's spinning around, and the footage of the various games in the arcade, they definitely look a lot better in the Enhanced Edition compared to the original edition. Also, there's a few areas I can see where the pixelation's been cleaned up quite nicely. The first time I actually noticed this was when Ray's spinner lands on his apartment roof, and it just really caught my eye how the 60 frames per second looks a lot nicer. Another part I really liked was the neon signs in Animoid Row. I'm not sure what it was about these signs, but they just look a lot sharper and kind of cleaner in the Enhanced Edition. There were a few times like this where the Enhanced Edition showed me the game in a new light. By clearing up most of the pixelation, I can imagine what this game would look like if it wasn't so heavily compressed. It kind of tricks your mind into thinking that you're looking at something slightly more high-res than it is. Some of the background characters as well kind of caught my eye when I was playing it. Like I think the reduction of the pixels kind of brings in a little bit more life. Like, for example, this scene in the comedy club where you just see kind of people moving about. And I don't know, it just like tricks you into thinking you're looking at like really high-res stuff, especially when you're not paying too much attention to the detail. What's cool is that these are actually all high-quality 3D models in the original game, but they were just compressed hundreds of times to make them usable with the limited hardware at the time. This is what makes a remake of Blade Runner so appealing. We no longer have those limitations with hardware, so what would those high-res models look like if they weren't compressed? And in some ways we may never know, because we don't have the original source 3D files. So instead, Night Dive have been forced to just try and upscale the original footage. So is that good or bad? Does that actually work? The answer is highly subjective here, and I think it definitely works in some parts of the game. There is not the source 3D files. So instead, Night Dive have been forced to just try and upscale the original footage. So is that good or bad? Does that actually work? The answer is highly subjective here, and I think it definitely works in some parts of the game. There is now a sort of impressionistic style to some of it. Instead of that pixelated style, it's more of an impressionistic, blurry style, I think. And in some ways, this is the AI's impression of what the game would look like at higher resolution. At least it's the AI's best approximation of what the game would look like. When things look slightly blurry as a result, those hard, jaggy pixels have now been smoothed out, and for me the blur adds like a level of ambiguity in the background that I think is actually kind of nice. But the problem with this blurriness means that there are certainly some parts of the game that don't look so nice. One of the worst examples I could find of this was in a warehouse in the game. The texture on the bricks is almost completely gone because it's kind of blurry. So you lose all of the brick texture definition, and also the ground details are all fairly missing in the enhanced edition because the upscaling has actually blurred those highlights of the ground, so you no longer have the bumpiness of the ground. Also, the pipe in the middle of the floor just looks very smooth to the point where you kind of lose the refined edges of the actual. Also, the pipe in the middle of the floor, just the upscaling has actually blurred those highlights of the ground, so you no longer have the bumpiness of the ground. Also, the pipe in the middle of the floor just looks very smooth to the point where you kind of lose the refined edges of the actual end of the pipe. Also, the graffiti is a little bit harder to read and harder to sort of see because it's just kind of lost that little bit of definition with the smoothing out of the pixels. So that was probably one of the worst examples I've seen, but there are a couple of other things that stood out to me, but I can't tell if they're really graphical bugs or it's because I'm kind of really done with the game, and I don't really know that until I actually get my hands on an updated version. Another small change I noticed is the Scorpion box is now a much more accurate model to what you see in the Esper picture. Before it just looked like a little basket or something that kind of looked out of place. And another thing I noticed is the bomb scene in the game has been greatly improved. When you try and run away from a bomb that's about to explode, the game just sort of takes over and does the running for you. And it's hard to describe how awkward this part is in the original game, but I genuinely died about 10 times when I went back and played this a couple of months ago, and I do really greatly appreciate they've streamlined this part, because I could see if you got to this far and you just walked into this random sort of shop front and you weren't prepared to run away from a bomb, you might have to move very far back to find another save, because it's pretty much instant death if you're caught in this bomb. These are mostly small changes, and I know a lot of people probably complain that not enough has been changed or upgraded. If this was being sold as a remake or a remaster, then yeah, I would agree that not enough has changed, but this isn't being sold as that, it's an enhanced edition. If this was a remake, it would be just that, a completely new game. And to remake Blade Runner, I worry that you might lose the charm of the original game. And above all else, the enhanced version doesn't do that. As with every game Night Dive touched, there's a respect for the original version. The original experience is there for a new audience on modern hardware, including all the consoles. I never expected